The story begins on a beautiful plantation not far from the magic desert, where a baby boy was born. He was a baby boy who resembled his father. His mother named the newborn baby Ardell, hoping that her son would be a light to the world. From a young age, Lewin appeared different from other children. He seemed to know things that were strange. Like one day when Mr. Beggins, his father's friend, was about to go to Lake 8, little Lewin warned him not to go there because there was something strange. At that time, Mr. Beggins didn't understand what Lewin meant. That night, as the rain poured down heavily, Mr. Beggins rushed home. Lewin's father welcomed him at the door and asked why he was late. Mr. Beggins replied that he took a detour. Apparently, Mr. Beggins followed Lewin's earlier words, and that's why he managed to escape danger. It turned out that the road near the southern mountain was attacked by beast men. If he hadn't listened to Lewin's advice to avoid that location, his fate might have been in danger now. Lewin's father was still unsure of his son's abilities because if it was true, then Lewin would lead the future. Lewin turned out to have a talent for magic since he was young, and at the age of 7, he succeeded in improving his magic. On his 10th birthday, Lewin was selected as the valedictorian of his school. Lewin was happy with the achievement he had gained. He thought this could improve his family's status, but the reality was not what he had hoped for. On the first day of class, Lewin was asked by the professor to demonstrate his abilities in front of the other students. Lewin actually realized that he was not the best in his class, not even second. The professor ordered him to show his abilities immediately, but Lewin seemed to struggle to produce his fire magic. His body seemed unable to produce magic. He thought, perhaps soon people would find out that he came from an ordinary family. And indeed, after his friends found out that he came from an ordinary family and couldn't use magic, he was belittled and became the subject of mockery among his friends. He couldn't fight back when he received rough treatment from his friends. This condition made Lewin doubt whether he would succeed as a magician. Lewin always received ridicule from his friends, even though he entered this academy with the highest grades and was known as a genius wizard. But now his friends dubbed him as a defective wizard who couldn't use his abilities. Ardell thought that this was the end of his life before he encountered a miracle that he had never imagined before. The status window has been opened. A new player has been activated. Lewin wonders where he is right now. He feels like he's underwater. You are the incarnation of Drak, the world destroyer. What is Drak, the world destroyer? Lewin is surprised to see the figure of Drak. He wonders if he's dreaming. But this feels so real. Wait. It seems like he wants to say something. A few hours earlier, in the training hall of Ignite Academy, Heidel, a combat magic professor, ordered him to perform a fireball spell. Fireball is a common spell that is easy for students in this academy to do. But for Lewin, who cannot use this magic, it is very difficult. The professor told him to do it immediately. Lewin tried to perform the fireball spell as requested by the professor. A large ball of fire appeared in his hand, making the other students amazed because such a large fire is not easy for a human to produce. Lewin tried to control the fireball in his hand. His body seemed unable to control such a large fireball, making him feel nauseous. Professor Heidel shouted for Lewin to release the fireball in his hand to hit the target. However, the fireball seemed unwilling to leave his hand. Lewin struggled to release it. He felt like he failed in this exam. In this practical exam, students are required to create 10 fireballs and hit the target repeatedly. Let alone hitting the target, Lewin couldn't even release the fireball from his hand. It turns out he suffers from mana evocation disorder. He is considered a student with a disability due to this disease. Lewin became the talk of the other students. They laughed at him for not being able to use even the simplest magic. Lewin thought maybe they were just jealous because he entered this academy as the valedictorian from a noble family, while they were just from ordinary wealthy families. Lewin felt he could ignore the disturbances and insults from them, but what broke his heart was the realization that he had no hope of becoming a magician. He felt it was a curse he had to accept for the past 6 years. He didn't know how long he could endure. Lewin met 2 students in the academy corridor. Both students mocked him as the foolish Lewin. They suggested Lewin to just go home and not continue his education at the academy. Not only himself, but his family was also insulted by the two students. This made Lewin angry, and he punched one of the students named Binfolt. After being punched, Binfolt cursed and was countered by Lewin to stay quiet and not disturb his family. Seeing his friend, Binfolt, being punched by Lewin, another student attacked Lewin but was subdued by Lewin and punched until he fell. The student was in pain, holding his stomach, punched by Lewin. As if not learning his lesson, Binfolt, who had already been punched by Lewin, tried to retaliate using combat magic against Lewin. Suddenly, Professor Heidel came and shouted for them to stop fighting. However, it seems Binfolt's combat magic had already been released and hit Lewin. In Lewin's subconscious, he meets Drak, the world destroyer. Drak calls his name. Lewin wakes up from his fainting spell after the fight earlier. The nurse tells him to remain lying down. His head still feels dizzy, and he remembers the dream he just had. The nurse explains that he has been unconscious for a day. He is lucky not to have suffered severe injuries. However, the nurse suggests that he undergo further examination because he was struck by lightning directly during the fight. Lightning is a frightening magic because it can burn the body of the target, especially since Lewin was directly hit. That's why Lewin is surprised that he's fine. Professor Heidel approaches him. He explains that a meeting of the professors was just held regarding the incident, and Binfolt, the perpetrator of the attack using combat magic at the academy, has been expelled. However, because Lewin also attacked Binfolt, he is punished to volunteer at the academy for a month. Additionally, the professor asks him if he has an artifact. An artifact is a legendary weapon left behind by the magicians of ancient times. Lewin denies having one. He believes that if he had an artifact, he wouldn't have been treated harshly by other students as he has been all this time. Lewin asks the professor why he suddenly asked about it. The professor explains that before Binfolt's lightning attack hit him, a red light appeared enveloping him, like a high-level artifact that could reflect magic from Bin. Lewin remembers his dream when he fainted. He wonders if there's a connection. Lewin says he doesn't understand what's happening and assures the professor that he doesn't have anything. The professor doesn't say anything else and tells him to rest, while Lewin still thinks about the dream he just had. A strange blue box-shaped window appears in front of Lewin, startling him because this object is like what he saw in his dream. The nurse who approaches him asks if he's okay. Lewin instead asks if she sees the blue object like he does. But the nurse feels she doesn't see anything in front of Lewin. Lewin realizes apparently only he can see the status window. He feels embarrassed in front of the nurse. The nurse explains that Lewin's examination results are normal, and he can return to the dormitory. Lewin is still thinking about the dream he had. He suspects if Drak's artifact was transferred to his body. An odd window appears again in front of Lewin. The window displays a message that Lewin has become a player connected to Drak, and he must train his body in preparation for his power increase. According to the message in the window, he must train to punch and kick. Can these movements help a magician? Lewin tries to perform punching movements as instructed by the window. Every time he successfully performs the movements according to the window's instructions, the numbers in the window increase. He is excited to do it again until he completes the quest given by the window. Suddenly, Lewin feels something strange coursing through his blood vessels. He feels as if there is an increasing power in his body after successfully completing the punching exercises. He feels his fundamental strength increasing. His magical power and abilities seem to be getting stronger. He then sees the information conveyed in the window. It explains about replacing the mana circle with a force circle, which means his mana is replaced with strength. Those who sense and study mana have a circle around their hearts. The mana circle plays an important role in releasing and strengthening mana, where the amount depends on the depth of mana and the magician's ability to control it. Meanwhile, Lewin has 4 mana. That is quite a lot compared to other children. But because of his disability, mana is completely useless to him. Now his mana circle is completely gone and replaced by force mana. Mana circles are possessed by all magicians. And now he doesn't have a mana circle because it's replaced by force mana. If this new mana he receives can't do anything, what will happen to him? Will his life as a magician come to an end? He then tries the force mana power he just obtained. A fireball forms quickly in his hand with a large mass. He thinks this is the power of the artifact within him. Usually, magic takes 10 seconds to cast, but now Lewin can summon a fireball so quickly. The window issues another message for him. He can imbue magic into his body to attack. He wonders if it's possible. Could someone like Drak also suffer from evocation disorder like him, making it difficult to release magic? A new quest appears in the window. The quest orders him to attack a physical target. He tries to attack a target with a fireball and succeeds in hitting it. Lewin is very happy because he, who always failed to release magic during practice exams, can now do it. He wonders what Drak is like. The next day, Lewin is found sleeping in the courtyard. He wakes up to the noisy voices of other students wondering about his fate after being struck by lightning yesterday. Lewin gets up and leaves the crowd of students who are still amazed why he slept outside. Lewin enters the dormitory and meets Jason Damon, a 6th-year student at Ignite Academy. Jason asks why he left the dormitory last night, but Lewin doesn't answer. Jason is one of his friends who treats him well, unlike his other friends. However, Jason is a womanizing and alcohol-addicted person who often leaves the academy quietly. Lewin ignores Jason, who keeps babbling to go take a shower. While showering, he opens the window. He wonders if there are other quests that can be done to enhance his strength. 1 month later, Lewin enthusiastically trains every day to complete every quest instructed by the window. His strength and skills continue to increase. Lewin's friends notice changes in him. He often falls asleep in class, whereas before he was always focused on studying. They suspect he may be trying to cure his illness. Meanwhile, Lewin continues to be enthusiastic about completing every quest ordered by the window. He doesn't stop trying to find out who Drak, the world destroyer, really is. Although he has searched for information in the library, he has found no information about Drak. He even tries to access the window to search for information about Drak, but he doesn't get any clues. Then who is he really? Lewin's friend suddenly approaches him, telling him that his father has come to the academy to visit him. Lewin rushes to meet his father. He misses his father because for 6 years living at the academy, this is the first time his father has come to visit him. Lewin asks about his father's well-being and his younger sister, Luina. His sister is now grown up and is studying swordsmanship. She hopes that with her swordsmanship skills, she can protect her weak brother. Lewin feels ashamed to hear that. Lewin tells his father that he has made progress in his studies at the academy, but his father seems unsure. He offers Lewin to quit studying at the academy if he finds it difficult to continue. Lewin can return to the territory anytime he wants. Lewin had suspected his father would say that, but he assures his father that he is fine and capable of continuing his education at the academy. He promises that in the upcoming exams, he will prove that he will get good grades, and if he fails, he will obey his father's wishes. The exam period has arrived. All academy students are taking the magic proficiency exam. With enthusiasm, Lewin feels ready to face the exam. The academic exam is divided into written and practical exams. The practical exam is further divided into 4 parts: targeting, measuring magical power, direct combat, and one-on-one combat. As someone with evocation disorder, Lewin always scores perfectly on the written exams, but not on the practical exams. In the practical exams, Mikkel from the prestigious Gary Hill family always gets good grades. Mikkel, Lewin's friend, apparently underestimates him. He suggests that Lewin should just give up rather than fail again in the practical exams because it will only embarrass him. He has failed the practical exam 6 times already. Casually, Lewin ignores Michael's belittling remarks. This makes Mikkel feel strange about Lewin's change, as he no longer feels insecure and afraid around them. This is unlike his usual behavior. The first practical exam begins. In this first exam, targeting, students must use their magic to knock down as many targets as possible accurately. However, The difference this time is that the targets are moving, making it a bit difficult for students to attack. Therefore, the grades obtained by the students for this exam are not as good as before. Now it's Michael's turn. Professor Elric, a potion-making professor, and Michael's uncle cheer because his nephew will have his turn to advance in the exam. Confidently, Mikkel begins using his magic to attack the targets in front of him. In one attack, Mikkel manages to knock down several targets at once, causing his friends to cheer for him. Even his uncle, who is watching, feels proud because he is a member of the Gary Hill family worthy of being the family's successor. Michael's uncle thinks his nephew is worthy to be considered the pride of the academy. Tyron Ignat, the academy dean and a 7th class archmage, instructs Professor Elric to stop talking. Professor Tyron thinks he doesn't need to watch this exam until the end because the highest ability of the students is already represented by Mikkel. Professor Heidel suggests that Professor Tyron wait a little longer to see Lewin's turn in the exam. According to Professor Heidel, Lewin has been enthusiastic about practicing for this exam, so he hopes Professor Tyron will watch Lewin take the exam. Lewin begins preparing in position. He is excited because this is the right time to test his new abilities. An exam proctor instructs him to start the exam. Lewin immediately begins his magic, and a large fire quickly ignites on his body and hands. Students and professors who see it are surprised by Lewin's magical abilities. So is Mikkel. However, he still underestimates Lewin. He suspects Lewin can only summon fire but cannot release it from his body. Lewin's magic acceleration ability is very fast, exceeding the distorted time. It turns out Lewin has just obtained a new skill, time refraction. With this skill, he can move very quickly, as fast as a hurricane. Everyone who sees it looks surprised and cannot believe the power Lewin possesses. Lewin successfully attacked and destroyed 27 targets in one move. This is the highest score in the history of this exam. His friends did not expect his abilities to change so quickly. Professor Tyron stood and applauded Lewin's success. His friends also cheered at the display of magical prowess by Lewin. Meanwhile, Mikkel looked upset because his score had been surpassed by Lewin. After witnessing the exam, the professors gathered to discuss the newly demonstrated magical abilities by Lewin. Professor Elric tried to deny that it was within the realm of magic because he had never seen such a thing before. However, Professor Heidel commented that magic is an unlimited realm. If everything goes according to predictions, it cannot be called magic, but mathematics. Professor Elric attempted to argue with Professor Heidel's opinion, but Professor Tyron cut him off and said that he had just witnessed a perfect magical miracle, while other professors might have different opinions. Since the incident in the exam, Lewin's friends no longer underestimate him. More and more students want to befriend him and learn to have skills like his. Everything seems to have changed overnight, and Lewin is not yet accustomed to this because he was previously an outcast. However, of course, not everyone likes him, and the person who dislikes his progress the most is Mikkel. He went to Lewin's room and warned him not to feel great and not to show off because, according to Mikkel, what Lewin did in the exam yesterday was not magic. Unlike before, Lewin is not afraid of Michael's threats. He even taunted that Mikkel should be ashamed because he was defeated by Lewin, whom he had underestimated for 6 years. Mikkel got angry and grabbed Lewin's shirt, but Lewin managed to hold his hand firmly. He did not expect Lewin to have such strength. Lewin said, if he wants to compete, then it is better to compete in the one-on-one combat exam later. Mikkel agreed and felt that he could definitely defeat Lewin. The second practical exam is the measurement and extraction of mana. The exam location is near the statue of the ancient ogre King Ram. It is a statue of the ogre King Ram, 500 years old, created as an artifact while still alive by the archmage Freud. King Ram is trapped in this artifact and absorbs mana from magicians like a magic punching bag. Students are required to recite magic to King Ram and get a high score. However, the ogre is known to give low scores to magicians. Even a score of 20 is considered the best. Some students have tried to recite magic to the ogre, but none have received a decent score. Until it's Michael's turn, the arrogant magician. Mikkel starts reciting and using his magic in front of the ogre. However, the ogre mocks him for having low abilities just like his father, who once begged for high scores in front of him when studying at this academy. Despite exerting all his abilities, the ogre only gives Mikkel 27 points. This, of course, makes Mikkel angry. Now it's Lewin Ardel's turn. He approaches the statue of the ogre and greets it. The ogre seems to be seeing Lewin for the first time. Lewin Ardel starts reciting and using his magical abilities. Other students are surprised by Lewin's magical skills because he unleashes a mana explosion magic, a class 4 magic. The immense power of magic unleashed by Lewin leaves everyone stunned in disbelief. The magic just unleashed by Lewin is at least a class 5 magic spell. However, unexpectedly, the statue of the ogre shows no reaction. It asks, "Who are you?" Ardel responds that, as previously stated, he is Lewin Ardel. Lewin wonders if the ogre statue in front of him is Draka. He has been searching for information about Draka for the past 2 months, but has found nothing. Perhaps King Ram knows about Draka.